Honey Wash Day. This is Toksa Hour, and I am Maggie Ross. I am live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek where the porcupines roam. Huh. Well, this is Toksa Hour Sunday Morning Live. Today is August 24th, 2025. Hard to believe we are coming up on 5 years for Toksa Hour. 5 years, so September 20th. So 5 years, I think that's kind of a big thing. 5 years. Toksa Hour. 5 years. Yeah. So today we're going to kind of talk about preparing for harvest. We're going to talk about self-sufficiency and then um, mental wellness. Like we're all getting ready to go back to school. We're all getting ready to learn. And sometimes learning can be really difficult. So we're going to kind of talk about that. Oh, grab your coffee. I got mine. I was out early. I was out early this morning, where it's a nice morning. It isn't like hot. It's just a nice, cool, it feels like a fall morning. And we are trying to get ourselves ready, or at least our yard ready for fall and winter, because it happens pretty fast in South Dakota. It does. Like one day you're 102 and the next day you're below zero. Not that bad, but sometimes it feels like it though. And what do you think back to like our ancestors? Our ancestors did this whole process of preparing. And so every season there was something going on. And so it didn't mean, you know how today they'll talk about living in the present. And that's really important. Like you live in the present. You don't live in the past or you don't live in the future. You live in the present. As Lakota people, like our ancestors and many other indigenous peoples in the world, did that. They live in your present. There's things that you have to do today to get done today, but there's also understanding of the past. We learned those lessons. So that's why we're doing what we're doing today, because tomorrow is going to be a new day. And so every day you're in that routine. So sometimes people will think like um, living in the future. When people talk about anxiety, like what is anxiety? The raising of your heartbeat. And when people say like I'm anxious, or like, do you describe where in your body that part is? Like I know when I'm having anxiety, it's right here. It's right here. This is where my anxiety sits. And it doesn't sit up here. It's here, right here, around my heart. That's where my anxiety sits. And so I'm trying to take care of this. Like, how do I take care of this anxiety? I take care of this anxiety not only by, doing the processes of breathing, trying to be in the moment, and, like getting your body to feel okay, and not living in a threatening moment. But I do also have to do things in order for me to not be anxious, to have anxiety. So the anxiety that I'm feeling can be lessened when I do something, when I work, when I work towards accomplishing goals. Sometimes they'll talk about how in anxiety, um, like it's in mental toughness, like you can push someone to the edge, but don't push them off. You take them to the edge, give them a good, healthy stress, and then you bring them back. So it's that part of building resilience. And so when we think about that, like we are now, we live this, we walk this, we do this all the time. And we live in I don't think it's really changed, but like people will often say, um, we live in a time that is changing rapidly, which is true. But time changes rapidly. Like nothing is staying the same. And it's just the way we look at that change. So if we're looking at change as a threatening thing, then we might have anxiety. We might be anxious about it. So now we're entering into harvest season. I think they celebrate the harvest moon. Um, we as Lakota, Dakota indigenous people, we were planters, we were gardeners, we were all of those things prior to settlers and colonialism. And what had ended up happening is that settler colonialism, like it does everywhere, it just wipes out who we are as a people. And it says that we now are incompetent, ignorant people. And so, even in our school systems, we learn about everybody else, but we don't learn about ourselves. And then they say, well, that's the parents' responsibility to learn about yourselves. And when we try to learn, teach about ourselves, it's not, like that reinforcement. We're just constantly running into barriers. And so, understanding that we planted, we harvested, like we start harvesting things in as early as December, end of December going into January. We're harvesting. What are we harvesting at that time? We're harvesting chinchasha. And we know why we do it at that time. So there's things that we do and we know. And so and that's been passed down forever for us. It isn't something we're learning at school. It's something that we're learning in our homes or in our community or, with your relative at Sweat Fire or wherever, but that's what you're learning. Um, so we slowly, like we start these processes. We know we're harvesting Teamsla early, like that's usually middle of June. Um, yeah, June. It usually like people will say May, end of May, June, but we've been having some really wet springs. Well, this year it was wet, so I don't think people, I mean, you could have harvested your team slaw, but it probably was turning brown. Like there's all kinds of rules to harvesting the way we do. We harvest sage. We know when we need to be harvesting sage, cedar. We harvest berries, fruit. So those things happen. And then produce that we're growing usually is around, it's producing through the summer. If you're lucky, you're going to get squash and zucchini. Those were things. Corn would be harvesting around this time, depending on when you plant your corn, and potatoes. Potatoes will be harvesting around this time. I'm going to check out my potato box. I'm hoping I have potatoes because um, my potato tops have all like kind of died now, so like should be ready. So I'm hoping I have potatoes. So those are the things that we need to do and we need to understand. Like my grandma was a big canner, but prior to canning, we were drying. So we learned to dry, use the air, use our environment to help us process our foods. We'd harvest meat and then we would get those ready for storage. and then we would store them in the ground. We would dig holes into the ground, and then we would put our food in there to be cool and not to spoil through the winter time. So there's all these things that we did to prepare. So this is like the preparing time for survival through winter, which can be a very harsh on us. And so there was always a lot of preparation. And I'm going to tell you guys, we haven't changed. The human body hasn't changed. We still need nourishment. We still need food. And if food prices are going up, the tariff, the Fed has come out and said these tariffs are affecting us now. They're affecting the economy. Prices are going up, and unemployment is starting to go up. The job creation is not happening like it was. They say we're still a little stable in this market, but we are definitely in a downward spiral. And so the Fed is going to have to try to do something to help that. And Donald Trump is wanting them to lower the interest rate. I don't know if they're going to do that. So, what does this mean? It means we do need to be taking care of ourselves. We need to learn to garden. These are hard lessons that we learn at this time. If we didn't do a garden or if we didn't participate, hard lessons because you're going to have to depend on stores for your groceries. And I didn't, I'm kind of disappointed, I guess, with my garden because the second hail kind of took everything out. So I just had tomato stands. And so everything just got ruined in my garden. So I didn't really get to do anything. So now I have to go because what I wanted to do this year is I wanted to make tomato powder. I wanted to make garlic powder and onion powder and all of this stuff. I've been watching on TikTok how they do this stuff. And there's dehydrators, Um, my nephew, Porcupine, he has a freeze dry machine. So I was gonna see if what he would charge me to come over and do that. So now I have to go buy. So I'm gonna have to go to the farmer's market and see what kind of tomatoes are available and if I can buy, some boxes of tomatoes and see if I can buy boxes of things so that I can prepare. And I'm very fortunate that I have colleagues that their gardens were successful, so they've been bringing cucumbers. So I have a lot of cucumbers. So I got to start canning and making pickles and things like that. So I'm excited for that and very, very thankful for people who are sharing. My auntie, she used to have this big giant garden up in Porcupine, and she just would have everything growing. And she would just let the community come in and get whatever they needed. And they would. Not too many people like today, like they look at zucchini and squash because they don't know. They don't like zucchini and squash are like we grew those things. Those are from us. Those are things that we did. Um, the Europeans that came took the squash seeds and went back over to Europe and started that there. But there's plants and vegetables that specifically were here. Maize or corn was grown in Central America. So potatoes, all those things, they didn't have that over there. So then they took from here and took them over there. And even like beans. So they took beans and then they make these really cool different kind of beans over there. They crossbred them and stuff to make things. But we were doing that too. Even the sunflower. The sunflower is native here. And we know even in our own story for Lakota people and Dakota people, like the sunflower taught us how to follow the sun. So if you watch the sunflower, um, she raises her head up to the sun in the morning, And then she goes along the day and then follows all the way to the sun, and then she lowers her head. And then it starts all over every day. She does that. And so that's what we learned. We learned how to follow the sun. Like, look at that. We're observers, taught us. And we always looked at everything as relatives, right? So, um, teaching us, animals, always plants teach us things, how to do things, how to behave, teach us character, patience, all of that. Probably not the conversation you guys are all looking for. Good morning, Raymond. I'm glad you're with us. Not the conversation you're looking for this morning, but I felt like it's a needed break. There's a lot of heated things going on in the world. Palestine is in rough shape. They are in full-fledged attack of Gaza City now. They bomb them every day, all day long. And there's probably about 100 to 200 people murdered every day there. And that's just from the bombs. That's not including the children that are dying of starvation, that are being murdered through starvation. So, and this is the really hard thing too, is like in Palestine, they really try to grow their own food and stuff, and then they do that to them. They'll bomb them, wipe their food out. The olive trees, they destroy their olive trees. They just do all these horrible things to them so that they have to stay dependent. And if you can remember being, like it's it genetically remembering what they did to our ancestors. Same thing, like we had to submit in order to survive all the things. That's what they're going through now. And there are million people, 1.8 million people that are like looking to be affected by this. We were millions over here at one time before uh, colonization, before the settlers, before Christopher Columbus and the conquistadors, before all of them. There was over, I don't know, I can't even remember the number of millions of people that were of our ancestors that were murdered, massacred. So what it is, I don't know what happened here. My light went off. So when we think about what is happening with food sovereignty, so in food sovereignty, we say we plant our own food, we grow our own food, we share our own food, we harvest, we preserve, we're doing all of that. That's a part of food sovereignty. So food sovereignty brings this ability for us to start to have control over our own lives again. So we are not dependent on food stamps. We are not dependent on, or what do they call it now? Snaps. We're not dependent on even rations, even the commod houses. Like when we start to get involved in our own growing, tending to, and harvesting of our own gardens and our own meat, we become more self-sufficient. And the reason people don't want us to be self-sufficient is because if we are stable, then we are able to think. We are able to recognize things happening around us. If we are not starving ourselves, if we are not living in chaotic life and situations, then that's what happens. My light keeps going off. I don't know what's going on with it. Anyways, but yeah, so that there's purpose, there's intent. When governments do this to people, It's because they're trying to destabilize the community so that that community becomes so affected that they cannot take care of themselves. And if you look at what, like, even with the Palestinians, you look at how strong they are right now, even in all of this bombing and stuff, but they're coming after them like they were trying to even create addiction for them. So they don't drink alcohol. So they're not going to be able to get them to drink alcohol because of the Muslim faith. The Islamic faith, they can't drink alcohol, eat pork. So they then were putting drugs. They were putting what was it? What is it called? Opiates into their flour, trying to get them addicted to opiates. And so doing all of these different things to break their spirit. And we know what that feels like. And so the best thing that we can do to counteract that is to start being sovereign and having our own food and creating our own markets to trade food. I got into chickens, creating I share my chicken eggs. At one time I thought about selling them, but because it's expensive, like I have to go buy feed to feed the chickens and things like that. But um, I give my chicken eggs, here, and then to my family. I share. I share it in my community. Try to help my community. I can't feed everybody on the reservation, but here I'm going to try to take care of and lessen the burden. The other thing is in Palestine, they do these big soup kitchens and stuff, and they feed, and this is just their normal habit of life. We used to be that way, big dinner, big, cook, and everybody go there to eat. We used to be like that, but we became in this way where we are working or whatever, and so I don't know. I think that's something we should get back to thinking about, like who cooking and coming together and eating as a group, because socialization is what humanizes us. We see each other as relatives. We see each other as human beings. When we isolate, it causes us to start going into these places where we then end up with judgment. So, as we think about moving from summer into fall and into winter. So, what are the steps that you can do now to get yourself ready for winter? Because that's coming. It's a couple months away, or it could be tomorrow. I remember a couple years ago, like September 2nd, we had much snow that fell, and that was winter. Winter was coming, and it came early and it kind of stuck around. So, we know that's coming. So, what are the things that you can do? So, I've been talking about, within my family, about getting our propane tank filled. Trying to, like, we really want to get away from being propane dependent, right? We want to be able to do something other than that. So, what is the other? So, you can do electric heat, but the electric heat comes from coal. It isn't wind and it isn't sun. It's coming from coal. So the coal mines, probably of Montana, of the Crow Nation, the coal mines. Could be. So how do you heat your home? So you need to start getting ready for that. Do you start like like I said, we have propane, so we want to start ordering propane so that because our propane people around here, they don't come in and say we're gonna fill you up and then we'll bill you. They don't do that. Then you run out, you run out. Like you have to call them and then they charge you a minimum. So I don't know if they lessened the minimum, but I think it was like $280 was the minimum for getting somebody to come or getting the propane company to come and put propane in your tank. That was the minimum. It used to be like $80 and then that went up to, oh, it was 50. I remember when I was young and I lived in Evergreen with my mother, it was $50 was the minimum. And then that went up, $80 and $100. And then they even used to do this thing where you could buy in, so a locked rate. So if you signed up around this time, you locked in your rate. But they don't do that anymore because we don't have competition here. So nobody needs to offer any kind of service like that for us. But that's what they used to do. Now, some people get heat from wood. So if you get heat from wood, are you out looking for wood now? And it's really important, like woodcutters know, you burn green wood, you know, there's a lot of consequences for that burning green wood. It doesn't burn, you have to dry it out, like all this stuff. So now is the time, like you can go and look and see, like if there's no leaves on that tree right now, that's probably a dead tree. So you'd want to try to figure out ways to get your wood. There's all kinds of different tips that we could do. There's people that burn hemp, and I don't know how that works, but they take hemp and put it into pellets, and then they put this pellet into their wood stoves, and it heats. So there's things like that. But really getting yourself ready. Do start looking? We used to do this, looking at like winter boots. Do you have, getting your winter boots out of storage or wherever they may be. Um, Winter coats, gloves, hats. I have a storage bin, so I'll pull all those things out, put all my light coats and things away, making sure that we're getting ready for winter. Some people start, you'll probably start doing this in October, winterizing your windows, and your doors and things like that, so that you're controlling the air that's coming in. Other people during this time, they will buy air purifiers because everybody's inside. So because everybody's inside, they buy air purifiers to purify the air so it's not all toxic. Everybody goes to buy just to get rid of toxic environment at workplace or what? It's a joke. All right. So we're going, as I was saying at the beginning, we are back to school. We have, whoops, my chair almost went. I almost tipped over. So back to school. Colleges are starting on Monday. Back to school, first classes. Students in K-12 education, I think most of them are back to school. So some of the things that are happening when we make these decisions on school, we know that we are going to be mentally challenged. And so what do we do? What do we do to help us? So it's the same thing as that process of gardening and harvesting and being self-sufficient. Well, when we look at growing our brain, our learning, that is also a process to self-sufficiency. So learning how to take care of your brain, learning how to take care of yourself. So we need to sleep. We need to make sure we are getting plenty of rest. So getting your kids into their schedule and getting yourself into your schedule. One of the things that we do as parents, and I did this as a single parent with my daughter going to college, I would, play with her and do, all of those things. Everything was about her. And then when she went to bed, I would then be up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning doing my homework. And then I would go to bed and get up with her in the morning. That was the routine. that that kind of does a wear and tear on you. And when I went on my to do my doctorate and my master's program, like I couldn't stay up all night because I had to get up early and I had, like it just wasn't working. Like I was extremely exhausted. And so what I found was it was easier for me to get up early in the morning. So I would just go to bed with my kids, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I would just go to bed because once they know I'm up, they're up. As moms and dads, we know that. Like they're good. They see that we're still up doing something. They're being nosy and they want to be up too. And especially little ones, they'll cry around and, just because they want to be out there with you and doing stuff, get your attention. So I just went to bed with them. And then I got up about 4 o'clock in the morning, made my coffee, sat down at my kitchen table, and I started doing my homework. And then at 6 o'clock, so I gave myself 2 hours every day. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I would then start waking them up, getting them ready, get them on the bus, and then I'd go to work. So that's what I ended up doing. And it worked for me. And it actually even improved like my sleeping habits because man, I was really because I was sleep depriving myself. I was sleep depriving myself, so then I started giving myself insomnia where I couldn't sleep, anxiety, like all of these different things are just going crazy for me. And so doing those things, it's really helped me. And so I go to bed when the kids go to bed, even to this day, I go to bed. And then I get up and then I go to work, get them ready, go to work. And it helps me a great deal. Um, I realize that I'm saying a lot. I gotta quit. I gotta be careful of that. I'm just like sitting here thinking, didn't I just say that word? So when we look at self-sufficiency, and okay, we're preparing ourselves, we're going to bed, we're doing our homework, we're doing, all of these different things. It allows you to have also improves your outlook in life. So your outlook in life is more positive versus pessimistic because you're getting rest. Oxygen is really vital for your brain and for your blood flow. And so being a when you're stressed, that stress, what it does is it tears away at the processes in your mind and in your heart, your blood system, blood oxygen supply, breathing, all of that. It affects us in a very negative way. So trying to be positive, trying to be proactive in your life will greatly impact how your outlook ends up being. The other thing is when we think about, it's the same thing for harvest season, like we're thankful, we give gratitude, whoopla, all of these different things. And we should do that in our own life. Like we should, self-sufficiency gives us this time to be reflectful and to be thankful for our life and for the things that we have because we didn't have them for a very long time. When you become self-sufficient, it's like what the government is doing doesn't impact you as much. So, like right now, we are under a lot of stress and anxiety and all of that because of Donald Trump, right? And this Project 2025 and the attack on people. But the thing is, we became dependent and it was a forced dependency, exactly what they did to what they're doing to the Palestinians right now, forcing them to bow down and be dependent. They've done that to us. And so we've become dependent. And so now we're feeling the anxiety of dependency. So the counter to that would to become self-sufficient. To start, even if you're just growing to a tomato plant, even if you're just growing one cucumber plant, even if it's just one squash plant or just a few ears of corn or whatever, it's like you are taking upon yourself to become self-sufficient. You are becoming it. You are taking it on. And then once you do one thing, it grows into another. It does. It has for me. I'm always thankful that my grandma was a gardener and my brothers and my dad and my grandpa and them were all hunters. So I'm always grateful for that because growing up, then we had to garden, we had to learn about it, we had to learn about sitting in the garden, pulling weeds, and the importance of doing that so that those creepy, crawly jennies don't get in there and choke out your plants or the weeds don't take away from what your plants need. And then even that, like knowing that your plants even need you and your energy and your vibration so that they can grow too. So it's all like we're all one. We're all one. Oh, shoot. So all of this is real. It's an important conversation because we have dependency and we have self-sufficiency. And we know that we are very dependent. And all of these policies right now are affecting us. IHS, loss of funding, Medicaid, loss of funding. So what's the counter to that? Self-sufficiency, learning about plant medicine. If you took classes or signing up for classes at one of the tribal colleges, you should take a class about plants so you can learn it and learn how to harvest medicine. When do you do it? How do you do it? Do that. So then you're taking care of yourself. One of the downsides for me is like the storage. Like I have to have a place of storage. I went through this whole mindset and I'm still in it, but I don't know what to do about it. Like I used to rent from the schools, all the schools that I worked at, I would rent a house from them. And so I always had a house, so big house, whatever, closets and things. And then I just decided that I didn't want that anymore. Like I wanted to live small. Like I didn't need to have a big house. I didn't need these things. So I slowly downsized. And in the downsizing, I'm now like in a trailer house. And my trailer house is very small. It's a two-bedroom trailer house, and it's a older model. Like I got this trailer house, and I've been renovating it, and I built an addition on for a third bedroom, and that was gonna be it. The addition was actually gonna be like my office space, but it's now my bedroom. It was gonna be my office space where I can do things, but that didn't work out. So it was supposed to be me and my son. And so two bedrooms. Well, it's me, my son, my daughter, my granddaughters. And so that that is hard. Like I don't have any storage. I don't have anything like that. So then it comes back to like, do I need more space? Yes, I do, but I don't know if I necessarily want more space because I think that eventually they're going to grow up and they're going to leave and I'm just going to be, in my space again. And I don't know if I need to be heating a great big old house. I don't know if any of that. So I'm just in this kind of situation. So my storage is limited. And so I have to try to figure out how do I do that. And then I have a crazy 5-year-old granddaughter that's into everything. So storage is an issue for me. And it might be for many people. So it's just trying to figure out, well, how do you put your stuff into storage? Like I used to use mason jars and I would put my teas and herbal things into those and they would be in a cabinet, kind of stored away. And and then we would use them. I would use them. I use them, me and my granddaughters will drink tea if we're sick. I'll make medicine for my mom and take it to her if she's sick. If I have a friend that's sick, then I'll do that, So harvesting medicine doesn't mean that you have to have a big old pharmaceutical area either. It just means that for you and your family, what do you need to get through the year, through, until everything grows again. So that's really important to think about that and to find space to put your things. So that's important. See, there I am again. I kind of got us through our conversation already. Yeah, I kind of got through the conversation. But I think it's important. I think that if you do some steps to become self-sufficient, the better off you are. And once you start doing it, then you're teaching it. Then you become the teacher to your children and your grandchildren. Like I never thought, like I'm always experimenting, but like my daughter and my son, they had always saw me plant mound planting my corn. And so that's what they knew. And then I moved here and in 2016 I just decided to go back to row planting of corn and that hasn't worked out too well for me. But it's mostly because I don't have a big gardening space. So I need to make a bigger space, but that means like I got to figure it out. So when you do mound planting with the three sisters, it does mean you need more space for that to happen because your squash and stuff are going to grow all over the place. Yeah. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for joining me this morning. I want to also remind you to like, share, comment, follow, subscribe. I mean, those are all things that help. Toksa Hour's been on YouTube since January, I think, or February is when I officially made the turnover to change out of Facebook. I think I'm really glad I did that because I think Toksa Hour would have got banned in Facebook because they're really coming down it, from what I understand. Meta is really coming down on any Palestinian talk. So, all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to work outside. We got a lot of yard work and a lot of things to do. So you guys have a great Sunday. I will see you next week. Don't be afraid to do something different. If you are practicing self-sufficiency, pick up something new to do in becoming self-sufficient. If you are growing garden and have extra, share it with your neighbors or share it with some elders in your community. Those are really nice gestures. Hunting season is coming. It's really important to harvest meat as well, so don't forget to do that. All right, you guys have a good rest of your week, and I will see you next Sunday. I may have a visit